Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the Observer's chief leader writer, Sonia Sodha, and the Times columnist and leader writer, Sebastian Payne. So let's see what's on some of the front pages for you. We'll start with The Express, which carries the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch's criticism of the government for declining to hold a public inquiry into historical child grooming gangs. The Telegraph has the same story on its front, but also highlights Meghan Markle's upcoming Netflix cooking show. The Mail says the salaries for NHS have soared by more than £1.1 billion despite failing to hit performance targets on waiting lists. The Guardian reports on ministers launching an independent commission to reform adult social care. The Times also leads with that story, adding that Labour has delayed the planned overhaul of social care until 2028, so the Commission can build a national consensus. The Eye hears that millions of householders across Britain will be made to pay for the installation of heat pumps in the push towards net zero emissions. According to the Financial Times, the slow growth of the economy is likely to mean the government will be forced to introduce tax increases before the next election. And according to the Mirror, the Royal British Legion is actively seeking the participation of the last few remaining veterans from VE Day and VJ Day for the 80th anniversary commemorations this year. And the Star hears that travel agencies are currently accepting 2 holiday bookings every second as people look to get away from the grim winter weather. Not surprisingly. And a reminder that by scanning the QR codes you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages for yourself of tomorrow's papers while you watch with us. And we're joined tonight by Sonia Sodha and Sebastian Payne. Good evening to you. OK, so let's start with the Telegraph. The front page they're carrying is about Labour declining to hold a public inquiry into grooming gangs. Kemi Badenoch obviously coming out criticising that. Sonia, let's start with you on your opinion of this. It's interesting, though, because Kemi Badenoch herself has also been criticised because the Conservative Party didn't look into it either.
Yeah, and I think it's really sad, actually, the way that this very important issue has become a bit of a political football. So I've written a lot about, well, first of all, the grooming gangs, but all different kinds of child sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse that happens in the UK. We did have a big national inquiry, a statutory inquiry that took place over a number of years. It was chaired by Alexis Jay, a really reputable child protection expert, and it came up, you know, after years of work, 15 different separate investigations, it came up with a number of recommendations in 2022. One of the aspects that it looked at was child sexual abuse by organised networks, i.e. grooming gangs, in towns and cities across the UK. And we know an awful lot about this now, about how it's happened, about how it's taken place, about who's been perpetrating it, about the lack of action by police and authorities. I mean, it's absolutely heinous when you look both at the crimes that took place and the failure to listen to children, predominantly girls, working class girls in many of these areas, who this was happening to. And, you know, there were so many people kind of complicit in it and, you know, in not uncovering the scale of these crimes. And the independent inquiry came out with a number of recommendations on how we need to transform the way that we look at child sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse here in the UK. Really important recommendations that actually came out, you know, to be fair, under the last Conservative government. And there has been far too slow progress in implementing these recommendations. Now, it's certainly true to say that if you look at what lots of the independent inquiries into grooming gangs in different areas like Rotherham and Rochdale at the time, the race of some of the perpetrators was a factor in this not getting uncovered more quickly. But it's only one factor. Another factor was the fact that the police just saw these, girls as young as 12 as complicit in their own sexual abuse. They saw them as sort of, they would a sexually active adult rather than children who are being sexually exploited and abused. So there were lots of different factors. But even though we know that there were cultural sensitivities, I think what we've seen is a pendulum swing too far in the other direction, where, people are raising this now and using it as a political football, not because they are interested primarily in how we prevent child sexual abuse wherever we find it in society. It's a lot more common than we think, and it's not just grooming gangs. It happens in institutions, in sports clubs, in homes, behind closed doors. And, the implication seems to be that some forms of child sexual abuse are worse than others. And actually, we had an inquiry on all aspects of child sexual abuse in this country, and the conclusion was we are not good enough at it. We are not good enough at preventing it. We are not good enough at acting on it. And these actions need to be taken, and no one is acting on it.
And Sebastian, look, the Times also carrying it on page 6 and 7. They're saying that Badenoch calls for grooming gangs cover-up inquiry. What do you make of it?
Well, we should just note briefly why we're talking about this right now, because, as Sonia said, this has been reported for quite some time, despite a lot of stuff online. This has been covered in depth by the so-called mainstream media, and it was Andrew Norfolk at my paper, The Times, who was one of the first people to reveal what was happening in Rotherham. And Sonia, I know you've written on this as well, in The Observer as well. So this idea there's some kind of media cover-up is complete nonsense. That's the first thing. This all really began with Elon Musk and his element in all this. I think is on the Telegraph as well, because there were some people debating online about grooming gangs and whether there was some kind of cover-up, and Donald Trump's right-hand man amplified this for reasons that we have no idea why, having never said much interest in this before, and has spent most of today tweeting about grooming gangs and about Tommy Robinson, who, of course, is in prison for several contempt of court, and saying that he should be freed. I'm not saying Elon Musk doesn't have the slightest clue what he's talking about, but he just seems to be wading into commentary on this very sensitive area that there have been what I would describe as institutional failings on a systemic and very wide level across society. Now, coming back to where we're at in terms of British politics here, obviously...
Because he was very critical of Keir Starmer's approach, right?
He's been very critical of Keir Starmer's approach, and this is what comes to what the Conservative Party's been saying today. So the Conservatives have written to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, asking whether there should be an inquiry into whether the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, of course led by one Keir Starmer when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, whether it was ignored or even covered up reports of child sexual exploitation. I'm actually a bit sceptical of the idea of having another inquiry because, A, we had that massive child sexual abuse inquiry that went on for a long, long time. Oldham Council, which I think requested this inquiry, has also had its own inquiry. And there is a slight danger these things become a boondoggle for lawyers that will go on for 10 years and we'll just have a lot of interviews of stuff we already know out there. What I think matters is, number one, the institutions that failed, and are they getting fixed? And number two, are there prosecutions of perpetrators that could be happening quicker? That's what I think matters more. But ultimately, the thing that's really put this on the front page today is this letter that was revealed, I think, by GB News, that said that Jess Phillips, who is the Safeguarding Minister, has rejected this inquiry. The Conservatives are calling from it, and this is going to rumble on. But I think the last thing I would just say is this is a sign of politics in 2025, that we've got Donald Trump is coming to the White House in less than a month. Elon Musk is only going to get more powerful until he eventually falls out with Donald Trump.
An Elon Musk tweet.
And here we are, and it's now on several front pages.
UK.
You've got two party leaders, Nigel Farage has been all over this as well, all dancing to Elon Musk's tune. And this won't be the last time it happens. It's going to go across many different things, but I think particularly on this issue, you've got to be very careful.
It's not
helpful,
really,
exactly.
ultimately, as I think we can all agree, it's the victims that need the attention and the implementation.
And it's sort of strange that there's this row in some ways that's erupted over Oldham. There was an independent review into Oldham just 2 years ago. It made really important findings, including, uncovering masses of failings by Greater Manchester Police, where they weren't making, for example, council officials aware of the fact that there were men with very, very serious allegations against them. then working with Oldham Council and in a position, in relation to Oldham Council, where they could, potentially perpetrate further crimes. So there were huge institutional failings in Oldham, but we had a report just 2 years ago that looked into them. Quite a similar sort of report that we had into Rotherham, that we had into Rochdale. Then we had the National Independent Inquiry that looked at all the reviews that had been done and drew on the evidence from there to come up with some national level recommendations. So it's hard not to see this as a bit kind of, there's a report there. There are really important findings. Let's act on them rather than calling for another review.
It's about action and implementation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
OK, let's move on now to The Guardian, page 1. And it's talking about the huge raft of measures for adult social care needed for decades. I think we can all agree. We've covered it so many times. And it says that the Health Secretary says that by 2050, there'll be 4 million more people over the age of 65 in England than there are right now. And if we do nothing, real social care costs are expected to nearly double by 2038 compared to 2018 numbers, Sebastian. It's very much something that's needed. There's a lot of reviews and reform that's needed.
Yes, that's absolutely the case. And if you've seen this headline, then you might have read it about 15 times before, because we've had so many reviews and commissions and inquiries and listing processes about social care. And this is, if I had to say, slight problem of this government, that obviously Keir Starmer came in July, and a lot of the biggest stuff, be it defence spending, be it social care, has all been kicked into independent commissions. Now, the one good thing about this is that this latest commission is being led by Dame Louise Casey, who is the go-to fixer for problems across public policy in the UK. She's one of the smartest and most interesting people, and I think Baroness Casey will do a brilliant job. The only bad sign is this is going to come in 2028, which is probably just around the time we'll be starting to think about the next general election. And those statistics you mentioned, which is quoting Wes Streeting in The Guardian tomorrow, are very true. But the problem with social care is the Do Not review, which is the first time that looked at a proposal for this, is about 10 years old now, and we really do know the broad outlines of what needs to happen here. And the fact is that everyone's just dancing around because it's really, really difficult politically. But I just do hope that actually, Louise Casey's talking about a cross-party consensus here. I think that's going to be really tough. Theresa May tried to do this in 2017 election. She shied away from it. Boris Johnson tried to do it in 2019. He shied away with it. And are you telling me that Keir Starmer is going to have a 4-year commission to come up with a controversial plan to fix social care, to implement for an election? It's not going to happen. It will go in the manifesto, and we'll have another 5 years.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there on this particular subject. We're going to have to take a break. And coming up after the break, could the slow growth of the economy mean tax increases are inevitable? We'll discuss that next.
Migrants risk their lives climbing aboard these trains in search of a dream, the United States.
It's really dangerous. They often get robbed on this train.
They suffer a lot by police, cartels.
What happens to them next, we just don't know. Do you miss your mum?
With Trump coming to the presidency, how much longer will people be accommodated?
The journey you've been through, it's been very difficult at times. Has it been worth it?
See.
This is a journey which goes by one name, The Beast.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels. I've witnessed migration across Europe close up.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Free, wherever you get your news.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent. Sky News, the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave.
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away? Sky News, the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people.
Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem. Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Welcome back, and we have some breaking news to bring you. And Luke the Nuke Littler has won the semi-final of the Darts Championship. Let's take a look. And that is the moment that he won the semi-final against Stephen Bunting. 6-1, I believe, and now he's through to the final of the World Darts Championship, where he's going to face Dutchman Michael van Gerwen, who's on his fourth World Championship, or chasing his fourth World Championship title. Second year in a row, of course, for Luke Littler. He was 16 last year, 17 this year. A huge fan favourite, and certainly has brought darts back on the agenda for a lot of Brits as well. There we go, there's a nice hug between the two Brits. Of course, Stephen Bunting representing England as well. Finals tomorrow night, I think, at Alexandra Palace. Welcome back again. You are watching the press preview. With me now, Sonia Soda and Sebastian Payne to take us through all the front pages. Let's turn our attention to the FT, and on the front, their headline, insipid growth means tax rise is almost inevitable. So growth is going to return to the UK. Not strong enough, though, to avoid tax rises, which, of course, Labour keeps saying they're not going to do, but
so this is a survey that the FT have done of 96 economists in the UK, and I don't think it's going to be too much of a surprise, actually, that the economists they've polled, yes, they think that there is going to be more growth this year, but not enough to stave off the need for tax rises. And to be honest, we've heard lots of economists warning about this, including Paul Johnson, who's director of the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies. The issue is that Labour really do face a bit of a crunch, which is that the country's fiscal finances are not in a good state. That is in very large part down to the inheritance that they got from the last government. The only way to sort that out is to get growth so that you don't have to put taxes up, so that you've got more money flowing into the Treasury as a result of the tax revenues that you get as a result of more growth. But the issue is that growth going to come? And lots of people are quite sceptical, including the OBR, it has to be said, about whether over the medium term Rachel Reeves is going to see the growth that she needs in order to avoid some really tough spending choices around public services in the last 3 years of this Parliament. So there are lots of economists who think that unless she gets really lucky she may well have to come back and ask for more money, ask for more taxes.
Okay, going to have to. I want to move on, Sebastian, if that's okay.
If you wish. I think this is more interesting than the other one, but it's up to you.
Okay, go on then. If
Very
you can
quickly.
be quick. We've got about a minute or so
Right,
left.
1 minute
Maybe
quick.
we can squeeze both in.
As always, I agree with Sonia. I think that the fact is that Rachel Reeves went into the election ruling out tax rises on VAT, income tax or national insurance. From Labour's perspective, that was a huge mistake, because it means that all the tax rises have gone on the increase in employers' national insurance. And there's an economist here from Warwick University who said that there's a dawning realisation that without income tax or VAT rises, we cannot make the damn sums work. And so I think Rachel Reeves did say at one point last year she wasn't going to do more tax rises. That was kind of cancelled. And this tells you what everyone knows, is that she is going to have to raise taxes again at some point. And even though they've just done this very painful tax-raising budget, there's going to have to be another one. But it just shows how dicey all the economic figures are going to be. But as you said, it's not a surprise, but it's quite stark to see it in pink and white, pink and black, I should say.
Oh, so much to discuss. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there for now. Sebastian Payne, Sonia Soda, thanks very much indeed. You're back in the next hour, of course. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, we will have the latest for you as more details emerge about the New Orleans attack suspect. We'll bring you those and the latest pictures, and of course more on that attack in Las Vegas. Stay tuned to Sky News.